Okay, this is my final presentation for ELRC 4507. So I chose to do my Weebly on Louisiana history culture. So my overall unit is on Louisiana geography and actually prehistory as well. And then the lesson plan that I'm going to do is on culture. So I have my unit plan right here. So I have my unit author information. I have the unit overview information. I have my goals over here. Things like students are going to gain an understanding of information and concepts, analyze, interpret, and draw conclusions from historical events. And then things like students develop spatial understanding through the study of location, distance, direction, pattern, shape, and arrangement. Those are all physical geography things. Also, students evaluate relationships between cultural groups and physical features of Louisiana. So we'll be doing a little bit about that in the project. Unit summary. The unit's going to help students describe Louisiana's physical and political features and how they've affected people in Louisiana, how they're still affecting people in Louisiana. Students in this unit learn basic geography skills. They learn map reading, learn latitude, longitude. They also learned time zones and things like that. And at the end of the unit, they kind of move into prehistory and they start to see Louisiana people inhabiting Louisiana, the first people, and societies like Poverty Point, stuff like that. So subject area is Louisiana history. I teach grade 8. I teach gifted and talented, and I teach great scholars, and I teach traditional as well. I have the Common Core standards up here for history, social studies, but we don't use those as much as, we do, but we don't use them as much as the GLEs, the grade level objectives. The Common Core standards for Louisiana history are really for middle school in general, so it's just things they need to be able to do by the time they leave middle school. It's not as specific as grade level expectations. So I put all of the grade level expectations that I use for the unit on here, but we'll see in the objectives the main ones that I'm going to use for this lesson when I get to that. So I have my Weebly link here. The whole unit's going to take 10 90-minute class periods. This will be 2 of those 90-minute class periods. Prereq skills, I said they needed basic knowledge of like Word and PowerPoint, how to use those different functions. They need general knowledge of computers and internet technologies, like how to search the internet correctly. We have basic search engines. They need basic typing skills. We teach them those things kind of the first couple of weeks, or I teach them those things kind of the first couple of weeks. For example, they use academic search engines instead of just Google, so they need to know how to do things like that. They also need basic reading and writing skills at a middle school level or higher. Materials that I need, computers, internet connection, projection system. They'll also need computers, internet connection. We'll need a projection system so I can show them the example presentation that I've created for them. They also need multimedia programs like PowerPoint or maybe Prezi and things like that. They need an internet web browser. They need word processing. I have a bunch of printed materials here. This is things like their textbook and also things like little small books that I have them read. Supplies we mostly use for projects if they want to do a paper-based project. Internet resources I have on here. They're going to be finding a lot of their own internet resources in this project that you'll see. I didn't put this on here. We try to do a field trip to Honey Island Swamp every year, which is kind of a physical geography field trip in Louisiana. The thing is that usually we can't do that until the end of the year, and physical geography is one of our first units. But I guess that could technically go in here. And then assessment, formative are going to be things like the project grades, like the project that you'll see, quizzes, observation and feedback, writing grades, things like that. Summative is the end of the unit assessment, so EDMs. All right, moving on to the lesson plan. I have the lesson plan laid out right here, kind of in a numbered step, but I'm going to kind of go through it on the next page instead of on this page, but I do have a general overview of the lesson plan right here. So if I click on activities over here, this is the full lesson plan. So here are the objectives that I said were specific to this lesson plan, so the culture and ethnic groups lesson plan. So the students can describe cultural and ethnic groups in Louisiana and contributions made by these groups to Louisiana. They can explain how differences and similarities among these ethnic groups led to cooperation conflict. They can describe the causes and effects of cultural diffusion and its impact on diversity in early Louisiana. So my teacher technology activity, they are going to watch this Screencastomatic that I have right here before class to prepare for the lesson. So this is kind of a flipped classroom setting where they're watching a 10 to 15 minute video before class, and then they kind of have that background knowledge, and now they're doing their own research and creating their own projects to build off of that knowledge, or maybe having discussion groups or things like that, but in this case it'll be an actual project. So they can just click on this.
Hey guys, alright,
and it'll bring up
a
presentation that I've already done. So I just go through this PowerPoint in this Screencastomatic, and they can see basically cultural regions. They can see maybe some ethnic groups. I talk about like festivals and things like that, so some just Louisiana culture in general. Well, when they get to class, and a lot of times, I guess I should mention this, a lot of times I'll get them to kind of do a little small Edmodo quiz or something like that while they're taking this, while they're watching this video, just so that I can make sure that they actually have watched it. After, when they get to class, they'll have a bell ringer that's just a review of kind of this PowerPoint, and then we'll maybe talk about the PowerPoint for a few minutes. And then we'll move into, I'll explain the technology assignment, what they need to do for that, and I'll show students this example project. But let me, before I show you the example, go through kind of what they need. So they're going to be put into groups of 2, or they might work alone, and they're going to create this electronic presentation on some cultural region that I have them do. So those are things like Sportsman's Paradise, Crossroads, Cajun Country, Plantation Country, the greater New Orleans area. And then they get to pick what electronic presentation they want to do. So it might be a PowerPoint, it might be a Prezi, an electronic brochure, I said a website. Some of them know how to do those electronically created cartoons, and those come out amazing. Some of them might want to make a video or something like that. Or they might surprise me and come up with something else. So this is kind of where I differentiate the lesson, is let them choose the different electronic method that they want, because the content for this is kind of strict. After they've done their presentation, after they've created their project, they're going to do a presentation to their classmates, so that all the classmates will kind of get this information from each different cultural region, and they're going to have to ask thoughtful, higher level questions of each other and things like that. So a presentation has to be an approved electronic method. It has to include detailed information about these things like key cultural regions, important history, things like that. They have to include a map of the assigned cultural region. They have to have names of 2 major cities and 1 map that shows the location, latitude and longitude. They have to include 1 major geographical feature. So that's kind of, this whole section is tying it back into that physical geography that we've already covered by the time we get to this lesson. It needs to include at least 2 different ethnic groups, information on 2 different ethnic groups living in these different places. So maybe for the Cajun Country area, they would pick the Cajuns and the Creoles. They could, in greater New Orleans area, talk about how slaves were brought over from Africa, and that's where how a lot of African Americans ended up, and things like that. They all have to answer these questions. So these are 2 research questions, and then a question about some general ways that ethnic groups might expand. So this is not necessarily linked to the specific cultural region that they are doing. It's just general research questions. I said all presentation information has to be accurate and detailed. All group members have to participate in creation of the project. All group members have to participate during the presentation. Students have to ask at least 1 higher order thinking question. Individual student needs to be courteous to others presenting. And then this is my rubric for it. So I have information on cultural region, I have information on physical geography, information on ethnic groups. Those are those different questions that I came up with for them to do, or different components that they needed to include. I have the graphics, maps and pictures. I have research questions. I have use of class time. I have presentation, and so total points possible down here. You can see it's out of 100 points possible. So it's a pretty big project grade, but it's also a pretty big project. And then up here, so after I explain the whole project to them, up here I can come up here and click on the example project. And this is a Prezi I created once it loads. Okay, and then I can go through this Prezi and show them, and I won't assign anybody crossroads, of course, especially because crossroads is the most difficult one to do. It was difficult even for me to do. So I have my map, I have the region outlined, I have the example of the cities with the latitude, longitude, I have the geographical feature, the Red River, I have information on only one of the cultural groups, and down here I said I'm only providing information on one, but you need two. I was even hesitant to do one on one because I don't want them just copying what I did. I have the pictures you can see back there. I have information on culture, information on food, music, and art, general characteristics and history, questions. I said don't forget to answer these questions. I didn't want to answer them for them, obviously. And that's it. Okay, so then I'd show them that, and then they would get started on their presentation. They could work together, or they can work by themselves if they want to, because some of them are going to want to work by themselves. And then they will present, and maybe if they need to, take a couple notes from each other. But honestly, with a lot of the gifted kids, you tell them something once and they get it, and most of them know by now what they need and what they don't need by the time they get into 8th grade. Okay, so that's it for my project. All right, thank you so much. Please let me know if you have any questions.